All praise unto Yahweh Shimi Al Shai, double honors to the apostles of GMS, on the sheep brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity. This is going to be a relatively short video based on the topic that's in front of you, that is that NATO wants to revive Cold War era military spending norm. Alright, and as you read this article, and I'm going to do so, you're pretty much going to see they want to increase their spending to that of when you had the so-called Cold War. Now it's important to remember that spending was to be spent against fighting the so-called Soviet Union, because they're going to claim in this article that is for a threat that China is. Now that's also another important thing to bear in mind, that they see China as a threat, and by direct ties, namely business ties and business ventures that Russia and China hold together, you could easily determine that NATO and is an enemy to Russia and China. So all of this so-called military spending, all of that, the Mossad is putting within their spirit to really spearhead, go ahead and try, revive that so-called Cold War era style spending and venturing into this so-called World War III. All right, that's all. That's all to in essence to fulfill prophecy, man. I lost my train of thought there, but I can end off the statement with that. So it says that the Cold War was the period when military spending in many countries grew almost without control. It says as a result, in some countries, military budgets reached a stunning 2% of gross domestic product. It says when the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, it became clear that the threat from the Soviet Union was overinflated, but was used to justify increased military spending in the West. Okay, so that so-called backstory that they got here, that's important, because as you go read further down, really Russia's really more investing in their defense, and that's important to say, because if Russia's increased spending is based on defense, well, where is the threat that we've been hearing about for the longest time, man? Okay, because we're hearing this thing about the Russian threat, the Russian threat, the Russian threat. Okay, but if they're spending all of that, I think it's gonna say 1.3, 1.3 of their GDP on military defense, as opposed to military, as you're gonna see that the U.S. and NATO are spending like 2% of their GDP on military advancements. Okay, then who is the aggressor? Okay, and that's all to deal with how the people out there are led to believe what and whoever wants them to believe, because you have been led to believe that there is a Russian aggression. Okay, but ultimately that's all goes back into the scripture, because the scripture says the Most High is going to put hooks within her jaws, man. So that really they're going to be drawn into a war that, for all intents and purposes, they didn't really want. And that all goes to do with how the elites, the elite banking families, how they play these people against themselves to achieve whatever the agenda that they want to achieve. Now, the main agenda here now is to, a complete restart, a revival of the so-called earth, and the order of the earth. And the only way they could do that, and you see that in a lot of the movies, is that they're gonna destroy the whole earth and then restart again. So whoever's left after that, they're gonna use them. But for the most part, that's what they're gonna do, man. They want to reduce it to about 500 million people upon the face of the earth, and they want to use Russia and America as the instruments to do that. All right, it says. So we read that bit. Okay, it says, but history may repeat itself again on the 8th of July, 9, during the NATO summit in Warsaw. It says, during the summit, a decision is expected to be made to increase military spending by the European NATO members. Lobbying groups have again brought up the Russian threat, and again, like I said, bear that in mind, bear that statement, because that's an important statement. Really is. You're going to see by the numbers that how can they be a Russian threat when all they're doing is spending, a small amount of their, half their GDP on defense, and whereas NATO is spending twice as much as Russia on advancing weaponry, stuff, stuff that's dealing with, aggression, aggressive maneuvers. All right. It says NATO is expected to demand all of its members to increase uh, to their military budget to at least 2% of GDP, and they are likely to follow the demands. It says the author wondered why NATO wants its members to increase military spending. It says total military spending of NATO members since 1990 reached 20.2 trillion. At the same time, Russia spent 1.3 trillion. So it wasn't even, not even 1%. I forgot my numbers, but really, and that's euros. Okay, so they're basically telling you there that Russia used 1/20th of what NATO used, and they really used that on defense. Okay, and that's since the 1990s. It says NATO demands to increase military spending sounds absurd. Okay, because you can see the two dynamics now, where we're men of the word. Okay, that could be a misnomer. It could be the truth that's in terms of military spending, that's what they have actually spent, and they've only spent it on defense. But in all likelihood, they could be just really trying to use swing the pendulum, so to speak, and really use the fact that it's the defense spending, and really hide how much they really spent on their military advances, so you can have a like comparison of 20 trillion to however much Russia would have spent, because Sputnik is a Russian news outlet, so it's bound to have some Russian propaganda in there, and that's entirely possible that it is the case here. However, if it isn't the case, then you can see that that's like 23 trillion, right, in the favor of NATO, because that's the advancements. We're looking at the right hand side, the left hand side of things, and the right hand side of things. So it's like a differential of 23 trillion. Okay, and we're talking about trillions here, man. So these guys, they're gonna go to war with each other, man. Okay, 20 trillion. Right, let's not forget the American government is 18 odd trillion in debt. They could have spent all of that money that they spent here in fixing America. All right, but that's why the scripture says we would have taken balm for her. We would have tried to heal her. But the Most High ain't set up that she's gonna be healed, man. All right, so the elites said, fuck it, we just do away with America and start over. Okay, set up a new capital, set up a new world order. But that's not gonna happen, man. All you're doing is you're doing the will of Yahweh Hashem outside. The Most High put that pride upon you so hard that you think you're actually doing your own works. Okay, the Most High wants this ethnic cleansing. The Most High wants all of these people destroyed. Why? Because they're wicked. Okay, got homosexuals. All right, you got trans fucking genders, which is that's the kind of worst thing that's out there, man. All right, because we love women, man. Okay, contrary to what these other guys and these other camps will have you believe, man. Hey, you don't understand, man. Okay, you don't understand. All right, but the mere fact that you got this thing of a transgender out there, that ought to give you sleepless nights within the society, man. Here it is, you got guys talking about building within the society. You're gonna have some kid, and you have a son, and one day he's gonna come up to you and tell you he wants to be a woman, man. That's the society for you, man. Okay, that's actually the norm. In fact, these transgenders and homosexuals, they got more rights than the so-called black people who went through so-called Negroes and Hispanics and Native Americans who went through the most atrocious and most the worst history could serve up, man. Right? Bearing in mind they did that to get back onto the Most High, because they went off in the scriptures and the Most High punished them. But you got it to where right now those so-called homosexuals and transgenders, they got more rights than the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans. Hell, I'll say this: them faggots, if they come in a workplace and they, you got a so-called head-to-head race for the next raise or the next position or whatever, that faggot's gonna get it. You can forget about it if you're a so-called black man or a so-called Negro. You can forget about that, man. All right, they're gonna give that to this craziness, which all goes back onto the point I was making, in that the Lord summoned all of these people's spirits to go and spend all of that money in order to bring forth that judgment that needs to be implemented within this earth. And that's exactly what it says within the book of Amos, the 9th chapter and 8th verse, man. All right, behold, the eyes of the Lord power upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from off the face of the earth, saving utterly. I will not destroy the house of Jacob. Saving utterly, I will not destroy the house of Jacob, man. And the scripture goes on to say that he's going to build it as in the days of old. He's going to raise up the tents of, raise up the tabernacles of David. All right, he was going to raise up the breaches thereof, man. And that's what's happening out here with the house of David, which is GMS, with these flunkies, like it or not, man. With the house of David, if not, where is it? Okay, all right. So pretty much with that, you know, you can read the rest of the article for yourself. It's on Sputnik, easily accessible and available. Say shalom. Yahweh double honesty apostles of GMS. All praise unto Yahweh Shemi Ashai. Shalom.